Today I want to talk about some illuminating things that Ed Orgeron said both about the season and his team, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today I want to talk about what Ed Orgeron had to say at the Baton Rouge Rotary Club, where Brody Miller of The Athletic was on site. And there were a couple of things that I found Ed Orgeron to say that sounded really interesting. Let's start with the positive here. And I mean, positive to controversial is nothing bad that he said, really. The first one is he wants to play football. He doesn't care where they play football. He said, you call us at midnight to go play in the cow pasture, and we're going to do that, to which we all got to remember the state semifinal between the Dillon Panthers and I forget that other team because I'm only interested in Matt Saracen and Smash Williams and, Tim Riggins and whatnot. But I think that's what Ed Orgeron wants to do all along. I really don't think that he would mind much at all playing in a pasture, even in the best of circumstances, because he's Ed friggin' Orgeron. He doesn't care. He just wants to go play ball. And he's been steadfast in what he wants. He even told U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, we got to play football here in the state of Louisiana. And I think most folks in the state of Louisiana agree with him, which is one of the reasons why I think we can also look to the state of Louisiana as one of the hot spots for the COVID, along with Texas, Arizona, Florida. I don't think that we're going to not play football. Let me restate that. We're going to start this football season. It's about how far into it we're going to get. I, like you, would love to see each team play 12 games, but we already know that Pac-12 and the Big Ten aren't going to do that. We're waiting on the ACC to come up with what they're going to do. The Big 12 and the SEC seem the most bullish about playing college football through all 12 games, and they also have a bunch of games on the schedule with each other. Ole Miss and Baylor, Vanderbilt and Kansas State, Oklahoma and Tennessee, and of course LSU and Texas. One of the other things that he had to say I thought was really interesting was that Arik Gilbert's going to play tight end and receiver. For me, a tight end is a receiver, but what that possibly means is he doesn't just play the slot. He lines up on the numbers. And at 6'5", 253 pounds, you can understand how you would want to use the National Gatorade Player of the Year for 2019 in as many ways as you possibly can. He's going to be the best tight end that they've had from a recruiting standpoint at LSU in LSU history. A consensus 5-star, one of the top players in the 2020 class, and the highest rated tight end in like half a decade. Add to that what Thad Moss was and how they were able to use Thad Moss last year with Joe Burrow, and you can understand all the different ways in which they plan to use Arik Gilbert, who's going to get some shine as a true freshman at two different positions. And that's the kind of caliber of player that they have at LSU. They can play as many guys at 3 or 4 positions as anybody in the country, sometimes more, which leads me to another really illuminating thing you had to say about Cordale Flott, who apparently has really shined in practices and in the weight room. And after his first year where he played in 13 games and got a start at nickel, he's going to compete with 2020 true freshman and 5-star Elias Ricks. I love Elias Ricks' game. I think he's a natural safety, but the two of them are going to battle for an outside corner position and the nickel spot opposite Derek Stingley Jr. With Kerry Vincent already there, you understand and Kerry Vincent joins Kobe Stevens, and we understand what that safety position could look like. I'm interested to see how they choose to come back from a Christian Fulton going to the NFL and what that means for Derek Stingley. Will he move? Will he actually mirror the other team's best wide receiver? Or do they trust Cordale Flott or Elias Ricks to do that? And in many cases, I think they're going to trust them both. One guy's going to play nickel. One guy's going to play the outside corner position. And I think we're going to be able to draw a bunch of conclusions from that because traditionally at LSU, your better defensive back has played that nickel spot, that free safety spot, and can move around, right? I've thought that Derek Stingley Jr. could do that, but he's so good as a cover corner that I don't want to move him. If anything, you might want to play him both ways in addition to his job of returning punts. And it would be awesome to see a wide receiver group that features Terrace Marshall, Derek Stingley Jr., Arik Gilbert, and Jamar Chase. I would be so here for that. That would excite me to no end. Also adding to that, Ed Orgeron says, I think this is the best true freshman class we've ever had. Yikes, right? That's where they're at. But the last thing that I want to talk about that he brought up was the relationship between Steve Ensminger and Joe Brady. All right? Now, he's bringing up the Rotary Club because folks want to know, did Steve Ensminger win us the national championship or did Joe Brady win us the national championship? Because Steve Ensminger is still the offensive coordinator at LSU and Joe Brady is now the offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. what he said was, I want to leave no doubt that Steve Ensminger was our offensive coordinator and led our offense. Joe Brady taught us the spread. His word was spread. And Steve Ensminger called 70% of the offensive plays. That means 30% were not called by Steve Ensminger. Would lead many of us to believe that 30% were called by Joe Brady. Unless Ed Orgeron's out there in the headset talking about a run or pass, which is possibly on the, thing you could do. But then Steve Ensminger would say, what kind of run or pass? Or Joe Brady would say, what kind of run or pass? So I'm interested to see how this goes with LSU fans who have been steadfast and loyal in saying that Steve Ensminger is the reason that we're good. Steve Ensminger did this. To which the rest of us are going, yeah, but y'all wasn't that good in 2018, and then Joe Brady comes in there and y'all got to be real good in 2019. Seems like the common denominator there is Joe Brady. 10,000 catches and all that stuff, right? Running stuff like giant, which puts like 5 dudes out in patterns, including the running back, and Joe Brady was torching people with it, notably Oklahoma. And as much as you might want to say that RJ feels some kind of way about LSU, not in this particular instance, right? One of the reasons that I want you to know that I'm a fan of my team or who my team is because I believe in transparency. I believe that impartiality is still something you can achieve. And anybody that listens to me talk will tell you I go hardest on Oklahoma. Anybody, especially OU fans, right? Be like, yo, RJ, get off our backs, to which I'm going, get a top 5 recruiting class, and then I'll get off of our backs. But Lincoln Riley just got to raise $7.5 million on average through 2025 and ain't got no national championship ring. Meanwhile, Ed Orgeron, defending national champion, has a top 5 recruiting class right now and is talking about this 2021 being the best that he's put together. And I can see it, really. I can really see it. They're going to be really good. Perhaps just not next year, right? But I thought it was interesting that he would actually answer the question in as much detail as he did at the Baton Rouge Rotary Club about what Steve Ensminger and Joe Brady had to do. And I think Steve Ensminger this year would really want to take an opportunity to prove something in the same way that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady want to take this opportunity to prove something. I am good. I don't need that guy to be good. To which I'm going, no. Y'all were decent to good in 2018. Then y'all were friggin' assembled like Voltron in 2019. And you don't have that staff anymore. On both sides of the ball. George Munoz is at Baylor along with Dave Aranda, right? Now, Bo Pelini's going to make like $2.8 million. And that's as it should be, right? I don't have a problem with that. I just thought it was interesting that he would point that out. Even after they won a national championship and he chose to retain Steve Ensminger as opposed to retain Joe Brady, right? Because it would have been fully within Ed Orgeron's purview to fire Steve Ensminger and just keep Joe Brady if he thought that Joe Brady, 1, wanted to assume complete control of the offense, and 2, that Joe Brady was a better offensive coordinator and leader of the offense than Steve Ensminger. He clearly does not think that. And I don't know about you, but that's where I would put it. So I believe him and saying Steve Ensminger was the architect of the offense. However, the architect of the offense that they ran belonged to Joe Brady. And I think we need to continue to think about that. And that needs to continue to be a big part of the conversation. Because with a new quarterback that ain't Joe Brady, that ain't Joe Burrow, knowing that Miles Brennan has a lot on his shoulders that he has to account for, and that they're going to be really challenged at offensive line with James Craig's going to have his work cut out for him. I'm interested to see how this goes because it doesn't matter if Arik Gilbert, Derek Stingley Jr., Jamar Chase, and Terrace Marshall are all out in patterns if they can't block long enough for Miles Brennan to identify the open receiver and hit him. So, knowing all of that, I still think that LSU's probably going to catch 5 losses in 2020. But it's a weird year. It's a wild year. I'm just going to be excited we get college football underway. I want everybody to be safe. As a commentator of this sport, that's going to be my chief concern. I want to believe that everybody involved has that as their chief concern, but knowing how much money we're talking about, particularly television money to these conferences where SEC is going to get more than $43 million. Big Ten stands to make more than $45 million. I mean, this is talking about per team, right? Per team. And the Big 12 is going to make like $35 million per team. I'm not always certain that that's the case. And I wish the kids had more agency, but they don't. This is their lose yourself moment. One opportunity to seize everything they ever wanted. One moment. I sincerely want him to catch it. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.